Welcome, everyone. I have the pleasure today in moderating our panel with our fellow TD colleagues. And what we'll be talking about is data analytics talent and how we manage the workforce of the future. So I'm excited to get started, and thank you all for listening in. At TD, this is talent is a very critical topic, and that's in the heart of what we do. And you'll hear it today from all of the colleagues we have in the panel. Data, as we say in our company, it's the new gold, and talent is the forefront of it. We inspire to become our data analytics talent powerhouse that fuels the future leaders of the bank. Which is why I'm delighted to talk about this topic here today. I'll tell you a bit about our talent, our journey, and our challenges and paths that we're taking today at TD with the great panel team. So without further ado, let's start with some introductions. So first off, I'd like to introduce myself. I'll be the moderator here today. My name is Sidita Zhabjaku. I'm an AVP of Enterprise Analytics Strategy at TD and have been in data and analytics throughout my career in the financial industry. I'm excited for all of you to learn a bit more about the panel group we have today. We have a great lineup. So let's maybe first start with some introductions and get to know the panel team we've got. So Jeanne, I'll start with you and then I'll pass it over to Anoop.
Thanks, Sidita. So, hi everyone, my name is Jeanne Foucault. I'm also an AVP at TD, and I lead our reporting and analytics team for customer assistance. So that's the collection and recovery side of the bank. I've been at TD for 4.5 years, mostly in credit analytics related functions. And before that, I've worked in various countries in Europe and in Asia, always focusing on using data and analytics to improve business outcomes.
Thanks.
Jeanne. Hello, everyone. This is Anoop Gulati. I'm also an AVP. I'm part of the wealth business, wealth data and analytics team. My focus areas include any data and analytics requirements coming from our risk, operations, and our product partners. Today, funnily enough, is actually my fourth day at TD. So, a unique number in itself. Overall, I have about 15 years of experience spread across various verticals, always in financial services though. Work with functions in technology, in finance, in equity research and consulting before, and now I've been part of this amazing data organization for the past 4 years and 4 days today.
All right, I'll take it on next. So Adrian Locke, also an AVP, funny enough, at TD. I'm part of the enterprise data and analytics team here that we have. And right now I'm working on a cloud transformation to bring our data analytics platform into the cloud. I've been with TD about 5 years, been working for almost 23 years now, spent my life all over, worked in all over North America, spent a lot of time in Europe as well. A lot of it in consulting, not all of it related to data, but a good chunk of it. All right, Charline, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Adrian. So my name is Charline Simon, and I think I'm the youngest tenured one on this call. So I've been at TD for 2 years. I am also an AVP, and I lead the product analytics team for Canadian personal banking. So my team works very closely with all of our product management teams to optimize our banking products, customer journeys, and credit strategies. And prior to joining TD, I was working in loyalty analytics. I worked in a company called EMEA for 11 years prior to TD. And I had experience working in France, in the UK, and moved to Canada in 2014. So still new to the country as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for the introduction. I think, as you can see, we've got a very diverse team here with different focus areas in data and analytics within TD. So look forward to hearing all of their experiences with talent as we double click into some of the questions we have today. And before I do that, Anoop, congratulations on your 4-year. That's a big milestone. All right. So first off, really want to hear a bit about, and maybe Adrian, I'll start with you, why and how you landed within a DNA space, data and analytics space, and what were some of the challenges in you pursuing a career within data and analytics?
Yeah, so before I joined data and analytics at TD, I actually led the agile transformation at TD. And that was a big investment for the bank of changing how we look at working. And the reason I got into DNA, quite frankly, is there's a lot of transformation going on at the bank. Data analytics, people have been looking at data for a long time, but look, how do we transform that data into insights? How do we view things differently? There's a lot of investments being made at the bank around that, and so as an employee, what excites me is where the bank wants to head to and where they're going to invest in. And DNA was a big part. In my consulting career, I did have, I worked with a lot of places like the EDM Council out of London. I worked with the Ontario Securities Commission on stuff. So I've always had some stuff related on governance, but unlocking the power and the insights is something that I was really, really drew me into it. The biggest challenge I had was getting over my fears of, do I know enough? Am I ready for this? I look at everyone here on the panel with me, right? Everyone's probably way better at data analytics than myself, but I bring different things I can do, right? I am, like I said, very curious. I want to go where the bank's investing, and I may not be able to attack data and analytics like Charline or Jeanne or Anoop, but the type of insights I look for, right? Even in my everyday life, I think that's stuff that I really want to get into. And that's, as a consumer, I want banks to understand that aspect of me. So I had to get over a bit of, the intimidation of not being as steeped into it. And I think, somewhere like TD is very inclusive and allows for that opportunity. And I'm very thankful for that. That's it. That's my answer.
I love that, and I love you're calling out the curiosity piece. I think that's something that that resonates with a lot of us in data and analytics, right? With that, I would love to hear maybe a bit from Charline as well. I know you mentioned a bit about your career path, but would love to hear how you got into DNA, and if you ran into any challenges as you pursue your career within DNA.
So yeah, there was never a plan for me to become an analyst per se, but there was always a plan to work with numbers and to use data to tell stories. That's definitely something I was always passionate about. I've always loved math at school, and when I started working, I was looking to explore the different industries where I could apply my mathematical knowledge to solve business problems. And to that end, I started as a consultant as well, because then I could be exposed to different types of industries. And as I explored those different experiences and worked for different clients, I realized that what I was really truly enjoying was working with customer level information and customer data, because I was very curious as well to understand customer behaviors and what are the drivers of customer behaviors and how we can influence those behaviors. This is how I found my calling at some point for customer analytics, customer insights, and in particular, my next move after the consulting world was that loyalty analytics experience, because there was a lot of fun to be had working with data, trying marketing offers, marketing communications, personalization. So it was always driven by that curiosity, and also curiosity in the data itself, and curiosity in bridging the gaps between our business strategies, the data assets that we have, and bringing that knowledge together to make it relevant for the end customer.
Fantastic. Thanks, Charline. I would love to pass this question to everybody, but I think we're going to move on to the next one because I think there's so many great questions to go around. maybe I'll pass this over to Anoop. Anoop, tell me a bit about how has TD supported data and analytics talent? What strategy TD uses to attract and retain today's talent?
Of course, I mean, there's so many things that I can speak about how TD supports the talent in the DNA organization units. It's hard for me to come with a list, but to start with, we have a very strong enterprise team leading our talent agenda. Adrian is part of the enterprise team focused on cloud migration, but there's specialized teams looking at talent and how we bring the right talent right from the early stages, from the campuses in an internship program and a associate program, and grooming them over the years and exposing them to the different areas in the bank. Even within this various line of businesses, there are specialized programs to make sure when we go out, talk to our prospective employees, when they're still students, when they're still looking out for opportunities, we're always sharing our experiences in forums like this one. And we have specialized onboarding programs. Adrian also touched upon the amount of transformation that's happening across the bank. And there's, again, a lot of investment being made, not just in the transformation itself, but in supporting the employee journey, the colleague journey through the transformation. So the example being the cloud migration that's happening in TD as of now, there's a lot of investment being made on what are the new skills the employees need to live through this journey and to be successful post the migration, post the transformation. And that's tremendous amount of investment that the bank has made. Lastly, what I would add as a unique selling point that people at TD get is an acquisition that TD made a few years back of a company called Layer 6, who are specialized analytics professionals. And being in TD is one way of getting exposure to that focused skill set, employees, focused people who are specialists in what they do. And we get these opportunities to collaborate with them on these day-to-day projects where we're solving problems for the bank using some of the most cutting edge technology, most cutting edge thinking across the bank, across the industry. So I think these are it in a nutshell, and of course, happy to pass it on to others to add to the list.
Perfect. Jeanne, do you want to add anything to the list?
Yeah, I think so. Anoop touched on all the early kind of onboarding programs, which are really amazing. I've worked across like Europe, Asia in manufacturing. I've never seen any onboarding and rotational program like we have at TD. But once you are at TD, there are also incredible opportunities for development and learning, both on the like technical skills, Python at scale, like you name it, it's feasible, but also on the soft skill and kind of leadership skills. And the culture is extremely employee focused. And so employee development is a real priority at TD. So it's kind of a constant learning and growth mindset. The fact that we are a big company also allows for very varied career path. And it's not because you join data and analytics at some point that you're stuck with data and analytics for the rest of your career at TD. It's possible to move in and out of data and analytics function. And actually that gives people in the data and analytics function and outside kind of a perspective, a breadth of perspective, which is great for the company and also for your personal development. And finally, I think one of the strong selling points for TD at TD for me is the ability that because there is so much traction on data and analytics initiatives at the moment, the ability that we have as analytics practitioner to make an impact, a direct and visible impact to the bank, to our customers, and to our communities.
Fantastic. I love that, particularly on the impact piece, right? I think what we do in data and analytics truly changes the way that our customer experience our journeys and whatnot. But I'd also say, I think to your point about career movements within the bank, I think I've heard that a comment before saying that working at a bank is like having an in at the career fair, at a very large career fair. So it definitely gives you a lot of options in terms of whether it is that you want to stay within data and analytics or whether you want to change and get broader, different experiences as well. So Fantastic point. And Anoop, to your point in terms of investment, I think that's a big piece within data and analytics. It's an ever-changing world, and it's how do we make sure that we continue staying up to date with our skills and we're investing in the right capabilities and technologies. Perfect. That was fantastic. So maybe we'll switch gears a bit. I know obviously in the past almost 2 years now, we've been right in the middle of a pandemic. So would love to hear a bit more about how has the pandemic shaped the talent footprint within data and analytics and what you've all seen within your teams. Maybe I'll start with Charline first.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, because obviously the last 18 months have been very different from probably the last 5 or so for all of us. What I have seen in the Canadian personal banking world is that immediately we had to respond to something we had never seen before, an environment that was changing in a very fast way. Not only for our customers, for also in our personal lives. And everybody moved back from working in the towers in Toronto, for example, to going and work from home. And while all of our personal lives changed, we had to be there for our customers as well. And what really made people stood out during that period of time was the ability to adapt to change very fast, and the ability to work in an agile manner and execute with speed when we live in an uncertain environment. And that is something that I've been very impressed to see on our teams. The business teams, the analytics teams, like very much everybody really jumped in and wanted to help, wanted to solve our customers' problems. And that is something that is not going to leave. Like, that's really something that now is part of our culture, of our DNA. And that's something that we are building upon now. And in the Canadian personal banking space in particular, everybody is going to move to an agile at scale operating model because we realize that we can deliver great things in a very agile way, despite the size of our organization, because that's something sometimes that people think, oh, banks are very large, very slow. But during that pandemic, we actually proved that that wasn't the case. We are still very large, but we were able to operate very fast. And that's something that we want to do now in a continuous way, if you want, and in a formalized way. And that's really something that is now part of our culture and that we want to continue to nurture. So yeah, having that ability to adapt to change, solve problems very fast, also the ability to prioritize, like what really matters, what doesn't matter as much. Those are very important skills that make our talent really, really great at TD.
Fantastic. Thank you, Charline. Would love to hear a bit more about on this question as well. Adrian, how about yourself? What have you seen?
Yeah, I'd like to kind of take this from 3 different views, from a inside TD view and then an outside TD view, looking at potentially working at TD. So I think the first one is, you talked about it, right? It's like a big career fair that you can just go and move around. I think one of the things that the pandemic has done has made it easier to talk to very senior people. Everyone is used to working virtually. Everyone's relaxed. So, I know some people, and like myself included, when I would go talk to very senior people, you'd get a little bit nervous. But now you're virtual, you're seeing people in their houses, and they're just people, right? So it makes, for me at least, networking and meeting new talent or exposing myself as talent a lot easier. From a working with the talent that we have, I think it's really unshackled us a lot. And what I mean is we've learned to, and TD is already a very flexible place, but we've learned to find a really good work-life balance. And I'll give you a specific example. On my team, there's a mixture of people who are single, who take care of elderly, and like myself has young family. And because we work virtually and there's a flexibility, it's easy for people to say, hey, you know what, I got to step out because I got to, like I used to coach my oldest son's hockey team. It's easier. I don't have to commute to Toronto and then commute back, rush to the, pick up my kid, go to the rink, come back. And it's a lot easier to schedule. And because people are in that situation, something's up. And maybe it's not a kid they have to pick up. Maybe it's groceries they have to get for elderly, or maybe it's a personal appointment. So the teams have really learned how to work like that. And I think you get, a happy team is a higher performing team, right? And because we have that great work-life balance, I think a lot of our talent shines through. And with respect to like attracting talent, right? I think it's really, again, unshackled us. People who may not have applied for us because they live in Niagara, and they don't want to commute to Toronto, right? Like you don't have those constraints anymore. And so you can have those life goals of like, hey, I don't want to live in a small apartment in Toronto. I want to live in a big house with a yard so that my dog and kids can, go play. So it's much more accommodating, and people are recognizing that and recognizing how flexible TD is. But the other thing is the word of our transformation gets out. So I talked about the agile transformation. It makes me really happy that Charline references the agile stuff, because that was my world at one point. But people don't see us as, a big clunky, your grandfather's bank, right? We're investing in transformations. We're looking at different ways, and we're not just saying it, we're actually doing it. And it changed like that, plus the pandemic and the work-life balance. I think hopefully people who are listening will agree. It makes us a really attractive place. And I know other banks and other places aren't doing that, and they're demanding people go in and so on and so forth. I'm happy to say TD's been very flexible, very accommodating, and the people you work with, right? Like I said about meeting senior people, they're people, they get it, right? Like if I said, hey, Anoop, can we reschedule a meeting? I got to go pick up my kid. He most likely he's not going to say, no, we have to have the meeting now. Like he's going to go, okay, cool, let's make it work. And everyone's just more amenable. And I think that's a big, driver of talent. And it's more than just DNA, it's the culture.
That's a fantastic point. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Adrian. I think your point, the pandemic has pushed that, and I think it's now ingrained in us, right? And it's here to stay. So I look forward to what's to come from a footprint perspective in our talent. Okay, I know we're getting some questions from the audience as well. I am going to hold off on those questions until the end of our period. So we'll probably leave about 10-15 minutes on those questions, and then we'll go through some of them. But I just wanted to put that out there for the audience. If there is any specific questions that you really like to ask the panel team here, feel free to type them up. All right, so our next question that I really wanted to hear a bit more about is where do you see the future of data and analytics? We talked about kind of your story. We talked about how the pandemic, but now I would love to hear about what you think about the future, and how is that? What are kind of the skills that are going to be important for the talent as well? So we'll start with Jeanne first.
Sure. So I see a great future for data and analytics practitioner for sure. If you look at TD, but not only at TD, I think across many industries, there are lots of investment made both on infrastructures like data infrastructure and on talent, and both combined will allow for data analytics practitioner to make a greater and greater impact and really help shape the future of the business. If I think about the skills that are required, there are some technical skills which are constantly evolving. So there are some basic technical skills that you need to have to join these functions, but also the willingness to learn, I think, because this is constantly changing, as well as the ability to, we've touched on Agile a couple of times, so the ability to work across cross-functional team. And depending on where you are, I think it's important to have business acumen to understand really what keeps the people you're working with up at night, and how you can use data and analytics to take questions which are sometimes framed in a very analytical type of problem and sometimes not at all, just framed in a very open, ambiguous way. Take that question, turn it into an analytical approach, define what's the right approach. Is it core modeling? Is it kind of more traditional analytics? And being able to explain it back to the partners, what you've done, not only what the results are, but also what you've done and the reasoning behind it, so that they really take your insights and use them to improve their business.
Okay. It's fantastic. And Anoop, would love to hear from you as well. How do you see the future of DNA?
Sure, Sidita. I think the way I see it, the future of DNA is in a way slowly becoming part of the fabric of any organization. I think today we're still at a level of maturity where we think of data and this journey as a separate path, separate piece altogether. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we'd see this role, this skill become a fabric of the organization where every decision, every step of the action is taken in a data-driven way, right? I think we're some ways away from that. And there's, of course, skills that Jeanne spoke about. There's, of course, a lot of discussion around ethics in AI that's becoming front and center. I think that's part of the future discussion on data analytics as well. The aspect about, the important thing for future talent, I think this is where I'm a little bit old school. I think the past is no different from the future when it comes to importance of talent and the skills that you need. It's about taking the ownership. It's about understanding the context. It's about knowing that you're using data analytics to solve a business problem. You're not solving a data problem by itself. You're doing it in a context and making sure that you understand what context you're operating in and what business problem you're solving is always going to be important. I think that's my biggest advice to everyone in the audience.
Fantastic. Yes, that's right. It's that storytelling, right? Like being able to really, what we see in data, being able to put that through a story and into action that becomes so critical. Maybe I'll open it up to Adrian or Charline. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this?
You want to go first, Charline, and then I can.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Yeah, so definitely a great future for data analytics. I would think that the next step for us at TD is to think about data analytics as a way to even create new products. So data-driven products or AI-driven products, I think that would be the next step that we should consider. And as we're moving to this agile at scale way of working, what we are also changing is that some of our analytical roles are slightly becoming product owners type of roles. And we're starting to think about analytics as an analytics product in itself. And I think that's going to be the next evolution. That would be thinking about our suite of products to customers that are analytically driven or data driven or AI driven. And that's something that we're starting to see in the startup world a lot. AI product owner type of roles, and I can see that this is the direction that we will start to take.
Yes. So if I expand a little bit on that, I think so I can't help myself but to blend some of the agile stuff in here. But part of what you do with agile is you want to make decisions quickly, and I think when you have the right data and you have the right analytics on that, you get the right insights. And when you get the right insights at the right time, you can make decisions quicker. So it'll make you more efficient and effective. And so that's what you want to do, right? You want to get rid of some of that waste. You want to make decisions you quickly and that you are comfortable with, or pivot if you need to, right? Like when does that decision have to be overturned? I think DNA really, really helps with that. The other thing is to understand things more from the customer. For me, it's all about the customer. And if you put your customer hat on, you see things differently. And I think that's one of the big challenges that a lot of our peers here and globally have is really understanding that. So I'll give you an example. If someone comes to the bank and they apply for a car loan. They don't really want a hunk of metal. They want something to, for example, me, I want to be able to move my family around on vacations, take them to the rink, right? It's more than just a hunk of metal. It's something that I'm going to spend time with my family on, etc. And when they understand that and what I'm going to do, how I'm going to, leverage my money, then it also helps a bank view me differently. It's not just someone trying to get a loan. It's someone who has saving accounts for the kids because I want to buy a minivan. It's someone who maybe is also interested in insurance products, right? So the way that people can understand me as a customer, right? It's like, years ago, it's like, oh, everything revolves around the earth, right? And people are like, oh, everything revolves around the bank. It's actually not. If you think of the sun as the customer, everything revolves around the customer. And you see it in the US, right? They're so competitive, and you have all these, like growing up in Canada, most of my family stuck with the same bank. Our credit cards with the same bank. You go to the US, you go to Europe, and I've lived in both places. There's so much competition. It's a different type of loyalty. It's because different people carve out how they can satisfy the needs of the customer. And so it really comes down to how well do they understand the customer and can provide things to the customer. And without data and analytics, you can't get the trends. You don't get those insights. You see them very siloed in different departments. And that's something that this data and analytics is going to shatter, and it's going to cause people to think differently. Combined, of course, with the use of personas from Agile. So I got to throw that bit in there. And product owners are part of their goal is to understand that. And so it's a very different mindset shift where you go, bank is central. No. Customer is king. And I think that'll shape things a lot. That's it for me.
Fantastic. I like that. Customer is king, but you're right. Customers are in the forefront of everything that we do from a data and analytics perspective. And I'd say that, it's their expectations are ever changing in terms of how they interact with us, and how do we make those more journeys? How do we make their journeys a bit more friendly in terms of experiences that we're building for our clients? So, okay, fantastic. We've got about 13 minutes left, so maybe I would love to open it up now to the audience and take some of the questions. I know we've gone a couple of questions in, but if there's any more, feel free to send in some more questions. The first question we have is there any good advice for someone who wants to switch career and join the financial industry? Maybe I'll open it up here if anybody wants to take that question.
Yeah, I can take it. At least I can start and I can jump in. But I think, so if we think about data and analytics, what we are doing is really leveraging data to make an impact to the business. And this is not unique to the financial industry, right? So wherever you currently work, there are probably a lot of transferable skills that are very, very much applicable in the financial industry. And we've talked about storytelling, we've sort of talked about solving business problems, making an impact. All of that are skills which are useful outside of the banking industry and in the banking industry. So really for me, the main advice would be, actually two pieces of advice. The first one is think about these transferable skills and think about all the skills that are applicable in banking, but that you have also developed somewhere else, as well as talk to people. Talk to people in the banking industry to understand, one, if that's really where you want to go, and two, what they are doing, what they are learning, what the strategy is, what the values of the company where they work are, to make sure that you are fully aligned with that. So yeah, for me, that's two main advice.
I would say also, when you think of the financial industry, make sure you're thinking of it in modern times. Like, it's not the stodgy world it was before, right? Like Anoop mentioned, we acquired Layer 6. Layer 6 was an AI house that was very, and they're partnered with U of T and some other great places. So they weren't like a financial industry AI startup, right? Like, they were doing lots of other stuff, and they didn't have to let TD acquire them, right? They had lots of suitors. So think of, you can think of a financial institution as providing different financial products. We're not a software house, but you've heard about the transformation we're doing. It's not the way it was 20 years ago. So really, I think when Jeanne said, talk to people in industry, really spend time in that, because make sure you have a right understanding, because we have marketing people, right? And all they do is marketing, and they don't do anything with finance, right? We have legal teams, we have compliance, we have operational risk, we have data and analytics. Like, these guys don't just look at P&L and GLs, right? They're looking at customers and customer trends and all kinds of wonderful things. So I would say the first thing is make sure you are aware of how the financial industry is now, and then decide if that's something that you want to go in. But it's not the world it was 20 years ago.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, let's move on to a second question that we've got. And I know I told you we've got a really diverse panel background, so I'm sure we're going to have some great answers here today. So how is the investment and commercial banks in Canada different than the US and European banks in terms of the recruitment process, career paths, and anything specific that TD Canada looks for in terms of leadership roles? So a geographical question here for sure in terms of how we compare.
I can take a stab at it from my experience so far at TD. And so if you haven't joined the call until now, I've been at TD for just over 2 years, and that's my first banking experience. So I can't really relate to other experiences in other banks, but what I have seen in terms of what we look for leadership talent, like Jeanne said earlier, we are very, very people-centric. So what we mean by people centricity, it's our customers and it's our colleagues as well. And leaders at TD do have this mindset of focusing on the growth and the development of their own teams and people. So having that people-first mindset, I think, is a critical factor to be a successful leader at TD. And in terms of the recruitment process, I think it is a very, very human organization at TD. My own experience going through the recruitment process 2 years ago, I met a lot of people, and that's really part of the process, to get to know the culture, to get to know your future colleagues. And that was also something that really attracted me to work for that organization, because I felt it was very human, like very authentic, as well as that focus on diversity and inclusion is really ingrained in our culture as well. And it comes from the top. It's our top strategic priority. It has been for many years, and it continues to be. So all those factors make, I think, TD a very special place to work for, and something I've been enjoying so far.
Thank you, Charline. Does anyone else want to add a bit more to that?
Sure, I can add a couple of points to it as well. I guess the question is about comparison of US, Europe, and Canada. And I think, the first thing I would say is it's not a fair comparison. US is a different market, a different size and scale. So it's not the right thing to say, how do we compare to US? I would acknowledge that it's a different market and a different scale. But true to the Canadian style, I think we're perhaps a little more honest than some of our colleagues some of our friends from south of the border. You would not have positions titled vice president when you're an individual contributor role. That does happen quite frequently south of the border. Here in Canada, you would have titles and positions very true, more or less true to the work you're doing and the value you're bringing to the table, right? So, there's a bit of an acknowledgement that, people make comparison in titles, but they don't always mean the same thing especially across, different geographies as diverse as US and Canada. On these, what TD looks for in a leadership role, that part of the question, I think probably 2 or 3 things that come to my mind as the most important ones. The first, do you have a vision? Are you able to see the trees from the forest, differentiate the trees from the forest? Are you able to nurture your team? Because at a leadership level, it's not about you anymore. It's about what you bring to the table for your teams. And then it's about, are you taking a organizational perspective to problem solving? Again, at the leadership level, it's not about you, it's about the problems and the challenges we face as an enterprise.
So I'm gonna jump in as well. I can't help myself. So you can shut me down if you need to. So I've actually worked in both the U.S. and in Europe, and I've worked with financial institutions. And Anoop is right. They're very different, right? And I think one thing to keep in mind, and you look at the financial crisis, they were like Lehman Brothers fell apart, right? Like too big to fail in the U.S. and even like RBS and those places in the UK had challenges. They went into survival mode. Canadian banks such as TD did not, right? Like our balance sheet, yeah, it wasn't as strong as it before, but we were not in the same position. So they start to focus on different things. How do we make it super lean? Survival of the fittest, Darwin, all that kind of stuff. So they hired a lot of really, really smart people to get stuff done because they needed to, right? They needed to survive. TD, do we want that? Yeah. But when we look at leaders, we also look at the potential of the leaders and we also look at the culture. Will they fit in? So we talked about the teams and all that. That is very important to us. And that's also how we thrive and how we don't get overly aggressive in some places. And then when financial crises come, you need these big, massive government bailouts. So in general, our approach to banking is different. But TD is a very people and very culture, the environment is very important to us. And so whether you're, low level or senior level, potential and culture are very important things. And you'll notice it when you go through the interview process. That's it.
Fantastic. Okay. I love that. We've got only a few minutes left, so we're going to take one last question. And I know this one is an interesting topic that we're hearing across the market, not just data and analytics. But I think last I heard is that they call it the Great Recession across the board from talent moving companies quite often, at least in the past few months. So there was a question from the audience. They wanted to see about how TD has experienced talent shortage and what have we done about it?
I mean, look, anytime you develop and build a good team, people are going to come after your people. And, when I can talk about ED&A talent shortage, and funny enough, our shortage sometimes comes because other parts of the bank is taking, my team and other parts of the team. So we have that, and it's a good problem to have, and we promote movement. But a lot of people decide to move elsewhere within TD because of the culture and because of the people. So our type of brain drain is, I think, different than some others. And I know people who have gone to startups and they come back to the bank because culture wasn't there. People, the quality of people weren't there. And as I said earlier, you need to think about financial institutions, especially TD, differently than it was 20 years ago. And so, yeah, we do face that, and we face that shortage because people inside TD are doing it, but because our people are recognized, right? And they come to these events, they go to conferences, some people have papers, etc. And you expect that. And I think any team, whether it's sports, DNA, if you're a trader, whatever, you're going to experience that. But that's a sign of the company investing in developing people and it being noticeable.
That's fantastic. Does anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, just want to echo that ability at TD to continuously grow. So you can work for the bank for many, many, many years, and you will still be learning, and you have those opportunities within the DNA space, outside of the DNA space, and there are always opportunities to learn something new as the industry evolves, but also because of the scale of the enterprise that you work for. Yes, we did experience some talent shortage because data analytics talent is a very hot demand. However, when we do go out to market, and post our roles and advertise. And we have this huge, awesome brand. We get a lot of attention. We get so many applications each time we post a role. So I think at the end of the day, yes, there is a churn, like a constant churn. Mostly it's actually internal churn, like people that we encourage sometimes to move so that they continue to learn and grow. But we do get a lot of people in as well. And I do have also, Adrian, some few stories as well in CPB where people have left and then came back. So that's definitely something that I've seen here at TD more than anywhere else.
Wow.
On that point, Charline, I know at start of the call I said I just finished 4 years. Maybe to end this discussion on things about TD, this is also the longest tenure I've had at any organization, and I have no learning, no itchings to
Wow.
as of now, because TD has kept me engaged every single day and has thrown at me really innovative problems to solve, right? So for anyone who's passionate about solving real business problems, not just academic ones, this is the place, because you get empowered, you get all the investment that you need to actually solve a problem, and you're solving real business issues that you see impact being made in real time.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great point to end on. So I'd say people first, empowering and challenging and providing career opportunities across TD is the way that we've all grown within the bank, and we've all had the great opportunities to learn and challenge our own careers as well. So with that, thank you, everybody. We are at time. It was a pleasure having you all listen in, and thank you to our panel team for a great discussion.
Thank you, and thanks for everyone taking the time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.